Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
He is Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, joining us this morning. You staying dry this morning, Austin?
So far, but I haven't stepped out the door. So.
All right. Well, grab that umbrella, man. It's been pouring all morning. So, hey, I want to lead off talking little baseball here. So Christian Yelich, I want to bring him up because it was June 1st, I believe, he got hit by a pitch in the wrist, and a lot of people were worried about potentially a long-term injury. X-rays were negative at that time, and he didn't actually miss a game. But then he did return to the lineup yesterday. But before that, 2 games he missed because they said there was swelling that reoccurred from that hit by pitch at the earlier part of the month. Is that normal to, for a guy, in this case, to be hit in the wrist by a pitch, but then have swelling reoccur like a couple weeks or a week and a half later? And is there anything else that could be going along with that?
Atypical for sure. Not something I would expect. That being said, it's possible that he has, just instead of a standard kind of soft tissue contusion, there could be like a bony contusion because, as we know, baseball coming in off a major leaguer's hand is coming in hot. So It is possible that this was more than just a standard soft tissue contusion. So bony contusions definitely have more swelling, discomfort. They persist. So I think it does suggest that. I think, there being an actual structural injury, I think is pretty unlikely. Generally, when it comes to impacts, it's kind of black and white. Like you break a bone or you don't. And if you don't, it's going to heal and do well. So it's fairly atypical for a direct blow like that to cause, let's say, a ligament injury to the wrist or a tear to the TFCC or some other structure that would make a long-term concern. So I would say this is probably a little blip and shouldn't be much more than that.
Staying with the Brewers, and we've talked about pitchers many times and how hard they throw. Well, last night it was the debut of Jacob Misiorowski, who consistently can throw over 100 miles per hour, and he did so 14 times last night. So, that's a lot. I would imagine a lot of strain on that shoulder and such. But does his size factor in this? He's 6'7", but he's only listed at $190 too. So he's tall and lanky over there. But
Holmgren.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, but he's throwing 103 miles per hour deep into games too. Would you be concerned about any long-term, stress on that shoulder for how hard he does throw? And does his size kind of factor into it?
So yes and yes. So being that big definitely gives you longer levers. So there's no question. Pitchers with that kind of height are able to just create more velocity just because of the length of their arm when they're throwing the ball. Right? It's simple physics. That being said, there's a reason not many people can throw over 100 miles an hour. Right? So just what he's trying to do with his body is again pushing it to that absolute envelope all the way to the edge. And at the end of the day, these guys have been proven they've been able to do it. This is clearly not his first time throwing that hard. So do I think it's a guarantee he has problems? No, but there's no question that there is a link between that kind of velocity and guys getting issues with their shoulders or elbows or both. So certainly not to be like, this guy will be a flash in the pan for one season. Not saying that at all, but would it shock me if he at some point in his career has issues with the shoulder elbow? Not at all. So it is something. And now, of course, they're doing absolutely everything they can to minimize that. So, they're doing, significant, stretching, warming up prior to playing, a lot of probably therapy and treatments and modalities afterwards to try and minimize those risks. But at the end of the day, he's taking a baseball and throwing it over 100 miles an hour. So that's something that just puts stress on the joints.
You mentioned those warm-ups and such, and you've seen it, but every whether it's a quarterback or a pitcher or a baseball player, they always seems like a lot of people have unique ways of warming up. I think isn't it C.J. Stroud that throws like a golf swing or a baseball bat or something like that? Or Paul Skeens has some unique ones over there too. Is it just is there a rhyme or rhythm about it? Is it just more personal preference? Because I think the other day I was watching warm-ups in baseball, and you had guys throwing footballs instead of baseballs and such. So, is it just maybe Friday the 13th, a little, not conspiracy, but, what am I trying to think of? But anyways, is there any rhyme or rhythm to it that it warms up different types of muscles maybe?
So there are things that you want to make sure you do. So, it's basically some combination of stretching and then warming up the muscles around the shoulder, and then really the entire arm. But I think at the end of the day, how you get there, that's variable. So, I mean, there are guys who have their little quirks that they'll do, and they'll, have, whether it's, I mean, a lot of them will throw like a weighted ball, or they'll take like a rag and like whip the arm around. Dumbbells, bands are common. I mean, all those things are aimed at getting it loose and getting it, warmed up as far as the muscles are concerned. So really, as long as you're doing that, you're doing the right thing. I mean, it is really critical that they stretch the shoulder, get a lot of internal and external rotation, specifically what we call internal rotation. That's really critical for young throwers. And then getting the muscles warmed up, and then they just ease up. And I mean, that's obviously the whole idea behind a bullpen, right? The pitcher gets there, gets that arm warmed up. So how exactly you skin that cat, a lot of ways to do it, right? But as long as they're doing something. And, when people are younger, I mean, there's the invincibility fallacy where people just feel like I'm young, I can do anything. So there are kids who don't necessarily warm up, and, that starts bad habits. So I would say even young kids, if they're going to be throwing, doing a good warm-up is really critical, and don't forget the stretching. That's something that's often forgotten. But again, at the major league level, I mean, there's literally a team of people that these guys have that'll work with them. So they're not going to leave that on the table. They'll definitely do everything they can. But like I said, throwing 100 miles an hour, it's a rare feat, right?
Yeah. You mentioned the stretching part. I remember one time when I was in college too. Like I remember this sign. I think it might have been the biomechanics department or something, like trying to do a study, like the different types of stretching. Because I think there was even like a debate, like how much stretching should you do? Should you do more sports specific type of stretching and such? Is there such thing as too much stretching that leads you more open to injuries and such? Have you heard of studies similar to that?
Yeah, I mean, they've looked at a lot of different ways, and I don't think one's been proven to be like the way. I mean, the really big categories are static and dynamic stretching. So a static stretch is like you sit there and you bend down and touch your toes, right? That's a static stretch. A dynamic stretch is like you'll do like a goose step while you're running, where you kick your leg out and you're trying to stretch while you're moving. And so there is some thought, I think, that dynamic stretching is probably a little bit better because you're doing kind of a combination of movement and stretching. I usually recommend both. I mean, there's specifically for throwers, there's a couple stretches that I really like that really help loosen up the shoulder that are static stretches, but there's certainly a dynamic portion to it as well. So I think it's a little bit of both, but there's not been a study that says like you do this and you're guaranteed not to injure, fill in the blank. But we're always looking for percentages. So it's like, look, if we can cut the injury down by 10%, 5%, I mean, that's something that's a worthwhile endeavor. And so those things do come up, but there hasn't been any groundbreaking studies on that.
I'm going to try to go back to my memory bank here. Is ballistic stretching the one that is like the bouncing type of stretching that maybe isn't the most recommended type of stretching?
Yeah, I think that probably falls under the category of dynamic stretching. But yeah, I think that would be something that is it really never gained the popularity, and it really hasn't become like a mainstay. But you'll get some guys that do things. I mean, if you watch, for example, like if you go to like a Major League or Major League Baseball or NFL game and you watch warm-ups, every guy's kind of doing their own little thing, right?
Yeah.
And they're all very different. There's some guys who are just sitting there, again, reaching down, touching their toes. There's other guys who are working on it. Half of them seem to have like their own kind of coach or trainer with them. So like my buddy down in Texas, at the Houston Texans, he's working. So I mean, he basically is bouncing around working with guys, and they each have their own like individual kind of routine, if you will. And I think it's probably part of that as well. Guys just kind of have their routine, and so it's physical and mental too, right? It's like what you do, and so there's that element as well.
Really quick, back to Misiorowski, because I'm sure there's listeners saying get to the injury that he suffered last night. So I don't know if you had a chance to see the video, but he pitched and then he kind of walked backwards and almost tumbled. I mean, a 6'7" man tumbling backwards would have been a sight there. But a lot of people saw the inversion. See my terminology there of the ankle. Thought maybe it's a sprained ankle. Is he going to be out now? But the Brewers are calling it right calf and quad cramping. Now, it sounds like maybe he felt a cramp before that. I mean, he was walking without a limp and such, but, I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore the video where it does show him kind of that inversion with his ankle. Is it possible he didn't feel it last night, but maybe this morning he could be feeling a little bit of tenderness with that ankle?
Yeah, certainly possible. I have to admit I didn't see the video, so I don't know. But, I mean, yeah, if it's a classic inversion ankle injury, I mean, those are a dime a dozen, so we see those pretty routinely. And so usually it's not going to be a severe injury, especially if it's in that mechanism. He's just kind of stepping off the mound. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. I mean, if he has a history of ankle instability, and this is like the 10th time he's rolled his ankle, those can certainly be more severe injuries, even though they look relatively benign. For them to call it kind of calf cramp, you're right. Maybe he was cramping, and that's why he kind of lost his balance and fell. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't see the video, but that certainly can happen, right? So you kind of cramp up, and especially if you're stepping awkwardly, boom, all of a sudden if your calf's cramping, you're not moving the way you normally would, and that could throw you off. So hard to say for sure on that one.
Just a couple injuries, because I was scrolling through the MLB injury list, and there was a couple of them I've never heard of, and one I'm going to butcher the name here, but I wanted to get your thoughts on. So Brandon Donovan, who is with the Cardinals, sprained a capsule in the joint of his left big toe. What exactly is a capsule in the joint of your left big toe?
So that is probably a turf toe.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's so the capsule, presumably now. We if it's a turf toe, we usually actually call it the plantar plate, which is a thickening of the capsule. So it's really a thick bottom part, so it prevents your toe from hyperextending. But usually if it's a turf toe, they'll call it a turf toe. So it could be the capsule on another part. So I guess really the toe can get bent any direction. But generally it's going to be a hyperextension, so the toe going up too high, that's a turf toe. You can get the toe pushed in really far kind of towards your other toes. Like a valgus movement, and that could tear the medial capsule. Or if you got your toe rolled up, so like your toe, you kind of roll over your toe, you could sprain it dorsally. But I don't think I've ever seen that injury before. But I have seen them where they get pushed in, and I have seen them hyperextend. So that'd be a turf toe and kind of a valgus injury. So, but even if it is the valgus type injury, it's going to be in the same kind of category as a turf toe. You injured the capsule that stabilizes that joint. It's going to swell. It's going to hurt. And like we talked about, your big toe, it is a big part of your walking, running, jumping. So it can be, again, it sounds like such a benign thing, but it can really limit guys and what they can do. The good news is if it wasn't a real severe turf toe type injury, it should be something that bounces back pretty well.
Giancarlo Stanton with the Yankees, I mean, he's been dinged up, it seems like, for a long time now, and he's undergoing some rehab games, but what he's going through, this is the name, I'm going to try to get it right here, so bear with me. Epicondylitis in both.
Nailed it.
Oh, right, yes. In both elbows. What the heck is that? And how does somebody get that in both elbows?
Yeah, so it is incredibly common. So, I mean, it's also more commonly known as, it depends on if it's medial or lateral, tennis, if it's outer, or golfer's elbow. So we see this. I mean, I bet I'm going to go to clinic here in the morning. I bet you dollars to donuts I see one or two people with this morning. So it's really common. It's in the family of overuse injury. So repetitive movements, either vigorous or micro motions, cause like chronic inflammation in the tendons that come off. So if it's lateral, aka tennis elbow, it's the ones that cock up your wrist and fingers. If it's on the inner part, it's your flexors, so the ones that flex your fingers and wrists. And usually it'll be a little mild annoyance. And so I don't know if you've ever had tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. Actually, it's kind of akin to the turf toe. Like it's like man, tennis elbow, like that's not that bad. Like it really affects a lot of things. Most importantly, it makes really significant changes to your grip strength. So for a baseball player, swinging the bat, throwing the ball will absolutely be affected significantly. So, and so for him, it's going to create a real challenge for swinging the bat. So there's a lot of different ways we treat it. Sometimes we'll do things just like stretching, ultrasound treatments, modifying activity, cortisone injections. We do use those. There's some literature that says maybe that's not as good, more of a kind of short-term fix. Sometimes people will do like PRP injections, but really long and short of it is you get really significant inflammation in the tendons, whether it's on the extensor or the flexor origin. Again, very common problem, way more annoying than people give it credit for. And again, especially sport like baseball where you're trying to grip a bat, yeah, that's going to be a problem. So, and the tricky part, just to finish the thought, is it really takes a long time to bounce back from that. This is not like, oh, you have tennis elbow, take the weekend off, you'll be back next week. It traditionally takes a long time. So I'm not sure how long he's been on the injury reserve, but it is not something that's going to go away quickly. So it can take a while. I mean, I would say 6-8 weeks, not uncommon. And the challenge is okay, let's say he gets over it, and then you got to get him back into baseball. Well, that's probably what got him there in the first place. So you worry about recurrence, which occasionally can occur. But usually once you get it gone, it's gone for good.
Interesting. He's Dr. Austin Crowe, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. Happy Father's Day coming up here. Hopefully the family's got something planned for you this weekend. Spoils you this weekend. Maybe
it's a surprise. I don't know of anything yet, but hey, that makes it fun, right?
Exactly. Well, enjoy it, and we appreciate you hopping on every Friday morning with us, and we'll catch up with you again soon, okay?
Absolutely. Happy Father's Day to yourself and all the listeners out there.